Hey, welcome back. Thanks for checking out the Coach's Locker podcast with Chris Fore. I really appreciate you listening. Hey, today we're going to talk with head football coach at Trinity International University in Chicago, Lamont Butler. Trinity International University Trojans are an NAIA program. His story, I think, is pretty inspiring. It's a tremendous one for those interested in coaching football, perhaps moving on to college one day. Really, really cool story of how he got his first crack at the college football game. One of those being in the right place at the right time, but I think you'll find it to be pretty intriguing how that happened. California native first came to Trinity in 2012 when he served as a running backs coach. Butler helped the rushing game to one of their best campaigns in program history that year. They had a freshman named Chris Elliott, who was named the All-Mid-States Football Association first team. Elliott set a new MSFA record with 347 rushing yards in one single game. Went on to break the all-time TIU rushing record under Coach Butler's coaching. After that season, Butler left to TIU to become the head football coach at Horizon Christian Academy High School here in San Diego, California. His offense there set new records in 2014 for total offense, points per game, and passing yards. HCA had two receivers record over 1,000 yards on the year. In the classroom, his program produced 19 members on the Union Tribune San Diego All-Academic team. Coach Butler returned to Trinity in 2016 as a defensive coordinator and assistant head coach. In 2016, Butler worked with a defensive unit that included Trinity's first ever William V. Campbell Trophy semifinalist and linebacker Riley Schussler and senior quarterback Jarrell Carter, who had gone to become a member of the Arizona Cardinals practice squad. The defense recorded 23 sacks that season, second highest total in the last 12 years. Butler then coached 5 Trojans in 2017 that made the All-MSFA defensive team. So this guy can coach both sides of the ball. That's a real important part of the story. Follow Coach Butler on Twitter, at Coach Butler, TIU. That's at Coach Butler, Butler, TIU. Hope you enjoy this interview with Coach Butler. I'm real excited about it. We're going to be following Coach Butler all this year. We're going to do about a 10 to 12, 15-minute update with him each week of the podcast here throughout the course of his season. From scrimmage to playoffs, we're going to check in with Coach Butler each week, kind of follow his season. So I'm real excited about that. Enjoy today's podcast. You are listening to the Coach's Locker podcast with Chris Fore, a place for all coaches to call home. The Coach's Locker podcast is a part of the Football Coaching Podcast Network. Please visit footballcoachingpodcast.com to hear and see our entire lineup of top football coaches coming to you every single podcast with valuable information to help you and your program. The Coach's Locker podcast with Chris Fore exists to help prepare coaches to be hired for the job of their dreams and to provide coaches with dynamite resources to become even more successful in their field. You can reach me on Twitter at Coach Fore. That's at COACHFORE. And my podcast home is at 8laces.org/podcast. That's 8laces, EIGHTLACES.org/podcast. Welcome to the Coach's Locker podcast with Chris Fore. Now, let's get after it. Hands up, forget about the past, 'cause you and I's everything I ever asked for. Top down round the West Coast. So I'm real excited to have here with us on the podcast today Coach Lamont Butler. Coach Butler is the head football coach at Trinity University. That's an NAIA school out in Illinois. And he was just named the head coach January of this year, January of 2018, named the head football coach out there. And what we're going to do is we're going to follow his team this season with about 12 to 15 minutes a week every Friday on the podcast. We'll be checking in with Coach Butler just to kind of see how his season's going and, to talk to him about the good, the bad, the ugly of being a college head football coach in your first season. So I'm real excited about that, and I thought it'd be good for us here today to introduce you to Coach Butler. Coach Butler, thanks for taking time today to be on the phone call with us.
Oh, no problem. Excited to be here.
So, Coach, what we do we start every podcast with something called the kickoff, the tip-off, and the first pitch. And what I'm going to be doing, Coach, 7 questions I'm going to ask you, kind of just for feedback, again, just for everybody to get to know you a little bit. So, Coach, what's the first team you played on, and what do you remember about that team?
Yeah, you mean first team in terms of which football?
Yeah, any team, Coach, going all the way back to being a kid, any team.
Man, I remember a lot of teams. I remember my first T-ball team. I was at Oak Park Little League, played with my cousin. I was on the Padres. I remember that because I remember getting a triple play unassisted. So it was kind of cool. That was my introduction to baseball. And then I would say for football, it was Skyline Pop Warner. I remember I was 10 years old in junior peewee. Believe it or not, I was the kid who was hiding in line during the hitting drills. That was my first year playing. Thank God I grew out of that, though.
Yeah, that's a good thing since you're a coach now. So, yeah. You grew up, you're a Californian, right? You grew up here in California.
Yeah, from San Diego. Yes, sir.
Outstanding. Coach, what about the last team that you played on? What do you remember from the last team you ever played on?
Man, I remember, 2007, I was at Sacramento State. It was our last game. I remember walking off the field. I don't remember if we won or lost. I think we won because I was smiling, but it could have been smiling because it was the last game also. But I remember handing my gloves to a kid that I basically worked with at an after-school program. And so that's kind of what I remember from my last game. And then also one of my teammates from Pop Warner, I played against him in that last game. We played Idaho State. And so I remember him being there also. So that's kind of what I remember from my last game.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. You played a kid from your Pop Warner team. That's awesome. Coach, who do you consider your main mentor in the coaching profession?
I would say one would be Chris Johnson. So he was my high school head coach. I also coached under him at Horizon. And then also I would say Kirk Ware, who was another head coach that I've worked for. They definitely have helped me, along my journey. I credit Chris for, he was big on organization and making sure that, I had all my things in order in terms of, practice plans, game plans, administrative stuff. And so he was really, really good with that. And so he kind of prepared me while I was under him. And then, Kirk Ware, who was the former head coach that I worked for, great guy to work for. Anytime there's anything going on within, my program right now, or if I have a question about anything, he's someone I can pick up the phone, call, and talk to and get some advice from. They've really helped me grow and shape me as a coach.
Where are those guys at now?
Chris, he's a vice principal at Desert Christian Academy in Palm Springs. And then Kirk Ware, right now, he's a running backs coach at Drake University.
Okay, outstanding. Yeah, I got to meet Chris. You and I talked about it before. I interviewed back in 2011 down there at Horizon with Chris, and I think at the time he was the principal. And he seems like an outstanding guy.
Yep.
Coach, what's the worst mistake you ever made as a coach?
Oh man. So, when I started coaching, I started coaching in 2008. So, I was fresh out of college, and I didn't know any better. So, being a former Division I athlete, you're pushed really hard in your everyday activities, and when you work out, you're playing, things like that. And then obviously, your coaches, they're not the nicest in terms of, how they communicate with you on the field, things like that. Obviously, it's coaching, but there's different coaching styles or whatever. And so I remember getting to the first school that I was coaching at and had no clue. And looking back on it, I'm like, man, this is bad. But I remember telling a kid that he would not play college football, that he wouldn't make it just because, his attitude, effort, those types of things. But, looking back on it, telling the kid that he can't do something just because he's not where you want him to be at, for me, that's unacceptable. And obviously it was my job to coach him. And I don't think at that point in time I was really doing a good job of that. And, not learning the relationship piece earlier on in my coaching career, I think that was a big mistake for me because I was a ball guy. It was all ball for me at that point in time. I didn't really care about, feelings. It was all about the X's and O's and those types of things. It wasn't about, developing men and helping them grow and being great husbands, great fathers, those types of things. And so I would say that's my worst mistake as a coach.
Yeah, I think we've all been there, Coach, at one point or another. I remember I had a kid flat out quit right on the practice field early on in my head coaching career, and I was like, fine, get out of here. We don't want you anyway. And I've always kind of regretted the way I handled that, that situation with that kid. Yeah. Coach, what's your greatest accomplishment as a coach that you feel?
Man, I would say I think the greatest accomplishment would be seeing guys succeed on and off the field. And what I mean by that is, like on the field, I get excited. I get really, really, happy. You get the joy out of seeing a kid develop from, not being someone who's, a good football player into someone now who can function as a football player, who can play the sport, who's good at the position. I remember coming in my first year coaching also, and this was, a better job of helping a player who, coaches might have wrote him off, other players might have wrote him off, saying, oh, this kid's not that good. But then, being able to coach him and helping him get to, being all league, helping him get to, where he wanted to be at, the goal that he had set for himself. And then I would say outside of football, seeing those guys graduate from high school, seeing those guys graduate from college. I know there's a few, who are, they just finished graduated from college and they're married and, or, they're getting jobs and working and those types of things. And so those are the cool things to see.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, without a doubt, Coach, I agree on that. I mean, that's why we're in this game and hoping to use it, So, yeah, that's great to hear. Coach, I know you and I chatted briefly here before we started recording. I know you're going on vacation here real soon. Coach, what's your favorite vacation spot?
I don't really have. I'm a homebody.
Yeah.
So if I don't have to go anywhere, I won't. I'll just hang out and do nothing. I know I let my wife do all the planning and we're going on a cruise. I like cruises. I'll say I like cruises. Just to get on the boat, you got all you can eat food for 24 hours. And then, you just get to relax and kind of get away, go and play, being a football coach and, it's kind of football all the time. So you get a little bit of time away, which is always good, and then kind of get to recharge for the season. So I'll say a cruise maybe.
All right. Where have you done cruises to?
I've been to the Bahamas, Jamaica, Grand Turk, and then I believe we're going to Puerto Vallarta and Cabo on this cruise.
Outstanding, Coach. Your wife must work.
Nope, she's staying at home, but I give her my paycheck and she spends it.
There you go. Oh, that's funny, man.
Yep.
Coach, what's your favorite thing to do outside of coaching and family? Any hobbies or how do you like to spend your alone time if you got some time to yourself?
I try to read. I'm a book hoarder, I would say. Like, if there's a book I see and it sounds interesting or someone might recommend a book, I'll get it. But then I'm really bad at finishing them. So, I got some books I plan on reading this summer. But yeah, I mean, really just, relaxing. I don't do too much. I just kind of hang out And, if I'm not at the office, I'm with family. And so really just doing that.
Awesome. So, Coach, tell the audience here about Coach Butler's path to being a head football coach at the collegiate level. How'd you get into coaching? What was your first coaching job?
So started coaching right out of college. So I graduated May 2008. I started coaching at El Cajon Valley High School. I coached there for 2 years. And then after El Cajon Valley, I went to Helix High School for a year. And then after I was at Helix for a season. And then after Helix, I went to Horizon, so my alma mater. And then after I was at Horizon for a year. And then I actually got the restricted earnings graduate assistant position at Trinity International University. And that was my first college job. So I coached there through the season. Wanted to stay, wasn't making a ton of money. And so my wife made me come back home. Happy wife, happy life. And so when I came back home, the head coach at Horizon, Chris Johnson, he had stepped down. And so I took over at Horizon. I was there for 3 seasons. And then the defensive coordinator position at Trinity came back open. So I jumped at the opportunity to get back. And so I took over in 2016. And then after 2016, went to 2017, I was named assistant head coach as well as defensive coordinator. And then our head coach, he stepped down after the 2017 season. And then I was named head coach in January of 2018. So kind of a weird path,
Yeah, no, that's a little different for sure. So, as you know, Coach, I consult coaches all over on that job search process, and probably the number one question, the number one question I get is, hey, I've coached high school for such and such a year, amount of time, I'm ready for college. And it doesn't work like that. It's not like, okay, yeah, you're ready for college now. That's just not how it works. But how did you make that move from high school to college? How did you land that first college job?
Oh man, it was a God thing, and I'll say this. So I was at Horizon the summer of 2012, and it was July. We were about to go on. It was like a week before. Was it a week or 2 weeks before we started camp? And so Chris and I were working on a playbook, and so we were talking with all sorts of people. And the big thing about breaking into college sports is it's not all about what you know. It's about who you know, and then what you know. And so networking is big. And now, and the reason why I say it's a God thing is because of how it happened. And so Chris and I, we had just got done talking to a coach about, I think it was offensive line play or something like that. And we were sitting in like the meeting room, and he was sitting there and he was on his phone, and he kind of sat back like in his chair, like and he told me, he said, I don't want to show you this. I said, what are you talking about? And he and I had conversations about me wanting to coach college football, and Chris is a well-connected guy, so he knew some people, and he knew I had been applying for like restricted earnings or graduate assistant positions, and his big thing was, he was like, if you're gonna go, he was like, I need you to set a date as to when you're gonna stop looking for college jobs. And the date was August 1st, because August 1st was a week before our guys reported for, or a week, I think it was a week or 2 weeks before our guys reported to camp. And so that was basically would have been a time enough for him to say, all right, I got to find another coach, or I know he's not looking anymore, so we're good. And so so that day we're sitting in the office. After we're done with our meeting, he's just back in the chair, and he shows me a text message. And the text message was from Kirk Ware. he said, hey, looking for a young guy who wants to coach college ball, looking for a Christian guy, those types of things. And Chris showed me the text, and I looked at Chris. I said, why would you show me this? I'm like, I want this. Why would you show me this right now? We got 2 weeks until we're about to start camp. And so he showed it to me, and I was like, all right. I said, send him my information. And so he sent Kirk my information. And then Coach Ware, he called me, and I had a conversation with him there for about 45 minutes, just talking about life and, football, why I wanted to coach, those types of things. And then we also talked about, the Christian fit, because Trinity is a Christian school. And so, he wanted to see where I was with that. So we talked about that as well. And then he's like, all right, so the conversation ended. He said, all right, send me your resume, and then we'll go from there. So I sent him my resume, and then he calls me back the next day and offers me the job. And so this was on Friday. He called me and offered me the job. I say, hey, can you give me the week? I say, can you give me the weekend? Can you give me the weekend to think about it? And my wife, so I went home, talked to my wife about it, and I was like, there's no way my wife's gonna let me go. So we talked about it, and she was like, yeah, you can do it. I said, what? She's like, yeah, you can do it. Go do it. So I was like, awesome. So I called Kirk back on Monday, and then I told him I accept. And so I packed my car up on Friday, the following Friday, and then drove out to Chicago. And then I was in camp. My first day was the first day of camp. On the 6th was a Monday.
Wow, so that happened very quick.
Yep, really fast.
Yeah, it was really fast. Well, yeah, Coach, and I said, I tell guys all the time, I don't think it's even as much, a lot of people have that famous saying, it's who you know, but I think even more than that, it's who knows you, right?
Yep, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, because Coach Johnson, obviously that coach reached out to Coach Johnson. Coach Johnson knows you, so you know what I mean, and it worked back up that way. I think that's a real key for a lot of guys to understand. It's who knows you. When did you realize you wanted to be a head coach?
I shouldn't say I never had the aspirations of being a head coach. I wanted to be a college head coach. You have the idea and the thought, sort of like a high school kid, thinking, I want to play in the NFL. You have the dream of, and it looks cool, and you think about it. You're like, man, this is something I want to do. And you get into coaching, and it's like, man, you get that. I don't know if you've been coaching for a long time. I don't know when you first started coaching, you get that itch, and it's like, man, it kind of consumes you. And the head coaching piece, it was like, man, I would like to be a head coach, because you think, man, being in charge and doing those types of things, running my own program. So I think I would say I kind of thought about that, within my second, third year of coaching. I was like, man, I'll probably want to be a head coach. And then I was really introduced to, head coaching when I went to Horizon the first time, when I was under Chris, because I was his assistant head coach, and he would let me in on every single thing that, he dealt with, whether it was an email, whether it was, budgets or, scheduling or calendar, whatever it was that he did as a head coach, he made sure that I was, looking at it and being able to see it and those types of things. And there were some things that he made me do, that a head coach would do, but he made me do it for him, preparing me to go for him one day. And so when I saw that, it was like, man, do I want to deal with, all this stuff? And then I went to Trinity. And so it kind of, when you go to Trinity, when I was at Trinity the first time, I kind of, was taking initiative, and because I knew kind of what Chris was going through as the head coach in terms of all the things that he had to deal with, and so my job, I felt, as an assistant coach, was to serve him and help him, help support him in his role. And so I kind of did that, and doing that, you're like, man, okay, I kind of want to be a head coach, and you think about it, and so when I had the opportunity to go to Horizon the second time, as the head coach, it was cool, but you still don't understand, you still don't realize how much goes into being a head coach. And, after my 3 years at Horizon, I was like, man, okay, I'm good off of being a head coach, and, I don't want to, rush into that, again, I'll take some time being a coordinator, and just, coaching ball, because when you're a head coach, you don't really get to coach football as much as you like, or, do the things that, you think you would do as a football coach, watching film, at the college level, recruiting, self-scout, learning, talking ball and doing all those types of things. You're dealing with a whole lot of other stuff. And so I was ready for it before I got my first head coaching position at Horizon. And then I was kind of like, all right, I can take a little bit of time off from being a head coach and just coaching ball and recruiting, when I took over as defensive coordinator. And then, so I wasn't really looking to be a head coach really, really fast. But then, it just happened. So here I am again.
Hey, right place, right time, right?
Yep.
Yeah. No, that's very true. You have to start prioritizing when you're a head coach, and definitely some of those X and O things, got to go to the trusted coordinators. So, so you become the head coach there at Trinity about 6 months ago, back in January. Take us through your first day in the office, your first day in the big chair, your first week in the big chair.
Oh, so first, the big thing for us, because at the time it was, the timing was real sensitive, because our head coach, he stepped down in November, and so I didn't get hired until January, and so we were kind of in a limbo stage through winter break. I had interviewed. Like a week before winter break was over with, but then I didn't get word until after winter break that they were going to officially hire me as head coach. And then we also had another coach leave staff. And so in the office, there was only two of us that were working full time in terms of, recruiting and all the other day-to-day operations. And so first week in the big chair, I was recruiting and I was interviewing coaches and trying to hire coaches. And so that was pretty much how my first week went. So there were no our guys, they hadn't got back from break yet. And so, myself and our offensive line coach, we were, hitting up our guys that we were actively recruiting, telling them that we were still interested in them, and then also trying to recruit the rest of the class as well, with just the two of us at that point in time. And then on top of that, trying to hire coaches, the X's and O's, out scheme and all of that. I wasn't even thinking about any of that. The first week, it was all recruiting and hiring.
And getting your staff together. Yeah, I remember we spent a few minutes together at the AFCA convention, and you were looking for coaches at that time. So how many guys were on your staff there last year who left, and then how many stayed?
Last year we had there were 9 of us on staff, and so 7 of them. So there was our receivers coach, he was a GA. He graduated. He's a pastor now in Minnesota. Our running backs coach, who was the all-time leading rusher at our school, he went to go play arena ball. Our defensive backs coach, he took another job. and then who else was there? So left on staff, their full-time staff that was left was myself and our offensive line coach. So that we're the only layovers from the staff.
Okay. And so how many guys did you have to hire?
So I have to hire, want to carry, anywhere from 8 to 9 coaches. Right now, we'll be looking for a couple more guys. I just had a GA who left, and then another one of our part-time guys who left. He's moving out of state, and so we're looking for a couple guys to fill those roles right now. Got a few guys in mind that we got to interview and those types of things. So looking to have about 8 or 9 guys on staff.
Okay. Yeah, and if you're listening to this now, don't hit up Coach for a job because he's already filled them. This is gonna go out in early August, so don't be hitting him up for a job.
Okay. That's
He'll have those filled, folks. So, Coach, let me ask you this: when you're hiring, let's say a defensive backs coach or a running backs coach, you're hiring a position coach. What are you looking for in a coach when you fill that position?
Well, it all starts, initially we're going to start with the resume. And not to say that the resume is important, because obviously I know some of our positions, with it being maybe a part-time position or a GA position, I know those are guys I'm going to have to develop. They might not have a ton of experience, And so I am, I'm more lenient in those types of things where, okay, you might have coached X amount of years, but I'm willing to help develop you as a coach in that sense. But first and foremost, and I learned this from you, is in terms of that first email when you're sending your stuff in, did you follow the directions on that email? And if you didn't follow the directions on that email, I won't even look at. I won't look at the resume, won't even look at the email. I'll just trash can it, because the directions weren't followed. And, that shows if you can, follow directions if you're given those directions. And so, but, what I look for is, someone, if they have the experience, someone with experience, and I'll look at, where they've coached, if I know the area or the school or, those types of things, that plays a part into it. If I know somebody there, then, that's also good. Or if, a coach on staff or somebody, they know you, that's a plus as well. Being able to work with guys who either myself or someone on staff is familiar with, and that carries a lot of weight. And then, also looking for guys who, are eager to learn and who can teach. A lot of people, I think they think, oh man, coach, I want to coach this sport, but you might not be a good teacher. And that's not, it's not going to help you in coaching. You got to be able to teach. And so, someone who works hard, someone who's, you can mold them, they're coachable, and then also, they're a good teacher, I would say.
Okay, good. Did you have to let anybody go when you took over?
No, I didn't have to let anybody go, no.
Okay, that's a good thing. Have you had to do that as a high school coach?
Yes.
Yeah, that's never fun. Talk us through that process a little bit from your shoes as a head coach. Letting somebody go.
Yes, sometimes it's just not not a fit. And I think one thing in being a tough coach, we want our players to be tough, and as a coach, we got to be tough. And, tough isn't always when people think tough, they usually think man, strong, or, he's really, really passionate or fierce. But, tough is making those hard decisions, confronting someone that, you might have a hard time confronting, those types of things. And I was once told as a young coach and, as a young head coach, if you're going to make a decision, make the tough decisions first. And, the tough decisions, you don't always want to, make them, but you got to make them. And, when I made, my decision to, get rid of the coach, it was, I had a meeting first with the coach, just, tell him the issues I thought were, he needed to fix. And then, it didn't get any better. So, it didn't get any better. So we had to have that conversation about, him not returning. So.
Yeah. Yeah, those are tough talks to have. I wrote an article on my website, coachfore.org, coachfore.org. That's Fore. I wrote an article on there you can find in my article library, kind of about that process to fire a coach and how I fired, the very first coach that I had to fire, kind of how I went through that. So just a little piece of advice for any of you listening who might be going through that or thinking about how do I do that. I didn't have to do that until my 4th year of being a head coach. But, one of the great pieces of advice I'll share here briefly, give Coach a second to catch his breath, rest his voice. A very good friend of mine who coached with me more than 10 years ago, but he's a big wig. He's a big wig in business. Big wig meaning he works for I'm not going to say the name of the company, but he works as one of the top 5 managers of a worldwide firm. Okay, I'll kind of leave it generic, but they're in the construction landscape, construction business type of deal. And he will have to fly to Germany or fly to Paris to fire a guy. Like he'll go fly all the way over there for a 5-minute meeting. And so when I had to fire this coach, I called him and I said, "Hey, how should I do this? What's the process?" From a legal point of view, it was at a private school. But then also just, to let this guy off the hook and not be a jerk about it and stuff, because I definitely knew it needed to happen. But he gave me a great piece of advice I've shared with a lot of guys. He said, "Chris," he said, when you let somebody go, the first thing they're going to want to do is ask why and talk through it and say, "Oh, I'll make the changes," or, they might say, "You weren't clear on how you did things." And he said, then it gets into this, confrontational thing sometimes. And he said the other thing that happens is it turns into a job interview. And so he said, when you've made that decision to let somebody go, it should take about a minute. He said, like about a 1-minute meeting. And I thought, man, that's brutal. but he said, a lot of times, Chris, especially in your coaching business, that person probably knows what's going on, because usually you have to do it at the end of the season. By then they probably have a pretty good idea of things. But he said, bring them in, thank them for their service, and just tell them that, hey, you're not meeting expectations I laid out clearly for you. And he said that's a real important piece on the front side. But he said, you can use that going in a different direction route, but he said, just tell them, hey, you're not meeting the expectations, and I got to find somebody who does for the best for this team moving forward, and shake their hand and tell them you'll help them in any way you can in the future, and just keep it short and sweet. So that's what I did. I brought this kid in. He was like 21 or so, I think, and it was probably a 45-second conversation, and he stood up and he said, "Well, I knew this was coming. You're going to do great here. I've learned a ton from you. Thank you very much. And, can I still come to the games?" That's the only thing he asked. So anyway, just a little side note there. If anybody's going to be facing that decision this coming season. So Coach, you're entering your first season as a head college football coach. Are you sleeping right now? I'm talking to you here in late June. How are you sleeping right now?
Oh, I'm fine. I love my job, so it's not anything I'm, losing sleep over. There's, a lot of things, that are expected or things that need to get done. And so, you got to do them. And, but, yeah, I'm not losing any sleep.
Good for you. What has the last month looked like for you? I know you said you hit the ground in January, having to fill some coaching spots, having to really hit that ground recruiting trail. What did June look like for you guys, for you and your staff?
Still recruiting. As you know, as a college coach, you're pretty much recruiting 24/7. I know NCAA, they have some rules where they have their quiet period, those types of things where they can't contact recruits. Well, in the NAIA, it's a little different. And so for us, we're finishing up the class. Got a couple more guys that we want to try to get to shore up the class. But then also we're on our 2019 now. And so for us, we've been out at camps, working camps, and either coaching at a camp or they got we were at Northwestern, we were at Lake Forest College, we were at Benedictine, just building our database, looking at guys that we want to recruit, just connecting with those guys, trying to build those relationships right now.
Okay, so all right, yeah, I'm sure that's a huge part of it for you guys. Being an NAIA school, it's not like you're locked off on signing day in February and you've got your 25 kids locked and loaded. It's a little different for you guys. So Coach, there's a lot of coaches who might be listening who have never heard of Trinity International, and so talk about what you guys look for, because I love hooking up people, man. I love being able to introduce guys and so I want to introduce you to my listeners here. What are you looking for, and hopefully help out some kids here in the future? What are you guys looking for there at Trinity? What kind of student athlete do you recruit? Talk about, Coach, I know you're a Christian school, so talk about where that fits in spiritually, talk about academically, and then talk about athletically.
Okay. And so, for us, the mission of our program is win, disciple, send. And so we want to win a person to Jesus, disciple them in Jesus, so teach them how to follow Jesus, and then, send them out into the world to have an impact for Jesus. And, it's not something that we're going to force on our guys, but they have to be open to being in that type of environment where, we're going to pray. We're gonna, talk about things from the Bible, what it looks like in the world, and talk about who Jesus is, those types of things. And that's something we don't shy away from as a staff, as a program, as a school. And so definitely we want to find someone either who is a Christian and that's something that they believe in, or someone who's open to that and not having a problem with being in that environment. And so that's kind of what we look for in terms of the spiritual fit. And, Trinity is a different place. It's not, we're different than a lot of schools around the nation. There's some that, they got the title, where in terms of they're a Christian school. But, for us, we're really, really intentional about our student athletes and their faith. We're going to challenge our guys. We're going to talk to them about, who Jesus is. Don't know who Jesus is by the time they leave if they've never heard of him. And, it's all about pouring into our guys and building those relationships with them. And so, spiritually, that's the type of fit that we're looking for in a student. In terms of academically, for us, we got about 70 majors on campus. Our top 5 majors, I would say, are Christian ministries, business, psychology, and then any of our, our athletic training. We're the only school in Illinois who has an athletic training master's degree, who's accredited with that. Anything like kinesiology, sports and wellness management, those majors, and then as well as like our social sciences, criminal justice, those types of things. And so, those would be our majors. For us, student athlete wise, we're looking for guys who are driven. Academically, guys who are driven and motivated, and who want to do well in school and who have a plan. Most guys when we recruit them, if there's a guy who says, I'm just want to play, I'm trying to find somewhere where I can play football, that's probably not the guy we're looking for, because for someday football's going to end, if football is the only thing that drives you, if that thing is taken away from you, then that's an issue. We want our guys to be well-rounded. We want to help our guys, grow not only as football players but as men. And you can't do that if you have just that one-track mind. And so, I'm looking for guys who are driven and who have a passion, not only about football but outside of it. And then, athletically, we talk about something in our school. We say whole heart. And, the big thing for us is, doing things all for the glory of God. And at some point in time, an athlete is going to be upset with a coach, and the coach might not even know it. There might be something the coach said. There might be something the athlete or the happened in the classroom with a professor, and he can just be upset and mad. But we don't want them playing, just for the coach, or just for, my parent or anything like that. We want them to be, internally driven and playing for God, who should be who they should only get their glory from God. And so that's kind of what we look for. And looking for guys who, they love the sport of football. They're passionate about it. Looking for, guys who can do multiple things. If a guy plays another sport, that's definitely a plus, just because, he's able to do certain things that, maybe a single sport athlete, might not be able to do. I know there's a lot of, people out there who, they like the sport specialization. But I would say in high school, college is a whole different beast. Looking for guys who are well-rounded and, who play really, really hard with a lot of effort.
And so what part of the country, because you guys are in Illinois, what part of the country are you guys kind of focused on, or are you focused on a certain part?
Yeah, so Illinois, we definitely we want to make our bank in Illinois, so we'll hit Illinois really, really hard. Anytime we can get guys from our home state and keeping them home, that's a good thing. And then, to supplement, we'll be in California, so we get a good amount of players from California, from Florida, from Texas, and then, different areas. So we got some kids from Indiana coming in, Michigan. We got a kid from Iowa. Yeah, we get them from Georgia. So we'll hit Illinois really, really hard, and then, our we call them secondary states outside of our primary, which would be like Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, and then California, Florida, and Texas. Those would be our secondary states outside of our primary.
Yeah, I know. I sat down with Coach. He came up to an all-star game, man. I was so impressed because I was helping to lead this all-star game up in the desert. And, traditionally not a lot of great athletes come out of this area. But like Coach said, hey, man, if it's worth my whole day if I find just one. And so that told me a whole lot about you as a recruiter, Coach.
Yeah, I mean, and it's tough, recruiting, and especially with social media nowadays, it's really, really, focused on, what guys can get. And, for us as coaches, we're trying to find the best fit for our schools. And, if I'm able to get to an all-star game, where there's 40 kids or, a combine with, 100 kids, if I'm able to get one kid out of there, that's a win.
Coach, I think I met you face-to-face the first time when you were at an all-star game up here in the high desert. I was helping to organize, and I was just real impressed. You drove up, I think, about 3 hours from San Diego, and you said, man, if I find one kid up here, it's going to be worth my time.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's how recruiting is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you guys don't have a huge budget there. How do you even budget for recruiting?
So most of our stuff, is in state. And then, we'll do emails, with Twitter. Twitter's amazing because, it's basically free marketing, free recruiting. Every kid is on there for the most part. And then, you got, you can hit them up on there. Any chance we get to go and see, kids live or, go see a game, see a kid face to face, really talk to them and those types of things, allow them to put a face with the name. That's always something that we jump at. And, for us, not having a big budget in recruiting, we have to be strategic in, what we do. And, again, like I said then, and, I'll still say it now, if we're able to get, one kid, from, let's say we go to a combine and there's 100 kids there, and we can get one kid out of those 100, or there's 1,500 kids and we're able to get one, that's always good just because, now we get the chance to, our work doesn't come back void, We're able to still get those guys and, develop them and those types of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Coach, speaking of that, I read his Twitter on the intro here, but I'll have it in the show notes, and then I'll also have a link. But his Twitter is at Coach Butler, CoachButlerTiu, Coach Butler TIU. And then the website there for Trinity football is TIUtrojans.com. That takes you to the athletic website. You find their football team there. And then I'll also have up on the show notes there link to their 2018 Trinity football schedule, and then the conference that they're in. Coach, the Mid-State Football Association Conference for NIAAA. You guys are in the Midwest League. The other teams in there, Olivet Nazarene, Robert Morris, St. Ambrose, St. Francis, St. Xavier, and Trinity. Coach, how are you guys looking? I mean, how are you stacking up? What can we expect from the Trojans this year?
Yeah, we're in a tough conference. In terms of the Midwest League and the Mid-East League, 7 of the last 8 national champions have come from our conference on either side. And so, we played some tough competition. I know there were 3 teams who were in the playoffs last year, who won back-to-back national championships. And so, we play tough competition week in and week out. For us, it's all about getting our guys in, and once they get in, just developing them and helping them learn the scheme, those types of things, building the culture, and, getting guys to go out week in and week out, limiting mistakes, playing hard, and playing fundamental football. And I think, that'll help us go a long way. We got to, have a lot of new faces this year. And then we got, a good core that's coming back, that we can definitely build off of.
Well, that's good. And yeah, I didn't realize, man, that is a very tough conference, Coach. And then I know Olivet Nazarene. Shoot, when I was at Azusa Pacific in the late '90s, those guys were very good. Are they still a real powerhouse?
Olivet's pretty. Yeah, they're pretty good. They're on our side of the league. Last year, St. Xavier, they won the conference, and St. Francis, Illinois, I believe they were the runner-up. The year before, Robert Morris, they won the conference. And so, in the past couple of years, those 3 teams have, kind of been at, the top of the conference. And then, somewhere in the middle is either, Olivet, St. Ambrose, us, and then we'll, so we're, definitely for us here at Trinity now, with me taking over, definitely changing the culture. And trying to get our guys to, think how we as a coaching staff think and being the best players that each individual player can be. Everyone's made in God's image, and, we want all of our guys to be the best person that they can be, not try to be someone else. So, hopefully with that mindset, guys go out, they give 100%, go out with whole heart, and they're able to be that player that we need them to be. Definitely think we have some talented guys on campus, definitely bringing in some talented recruits. And so, hopefully we can bring everybody together, gel as a team, and get this thing rolling.
Coach, what have you had to change culture-wise? Like, what's one of the top one or two things?
One of the things I think, is just dwelling on the past. Guys, they'll tend to look at, the things that happened in the past and, working to get over those and always striving and moving forward to, continue to get better and not letting those things that, happen and circumstance, dictate your joy and how you feel about things, but going out every single day and doing your best.
And so this podcast is going to release today. It's the first Friday in August. So when's your first scrimmage? You guys, I assume you have a scrimmage.
Yeah, we have we'll be scrimmaging another a Division III university on the 18th.
18th of August, and then your first game.
Yeah, the 25th.
All right, Coach. Well, I'm excited to follow not only you personally, your first years here as a head coach, and kind of talk to you about the ups and downs. Hopefully, more ups of that process, guiding the Trojans, but just kind of being able to follow one guy's year and talk to you each week about the season and how that's going. I think that's going to be a real fun thing here for the Coach's Locker podcast here in the fall of 2018. So we appreciate you being available today, and I think that our listeners are going to have a lot of fun hearing about you, hearing from you each Friday during the season here. So we thank you for that opportunity to get a look behind the veil, so to speak.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited that you chose to follow me. Hopefully, it's something worthwhile.
Absolutely, Coach. Well, hey, I know you're traveling. I'm traveling through Iowa today, you said, right?
Yep.
Outstanding. So tell us where you just were. Share with the listeners what you've been doing the last couple of days.
I stopped in, as a coach, you don't. I don't think I don't have all the answers. I don't know it all. So any opportunity I get a chance to go and learn, I want to go and do that. And so I spent today. I was at University of South Dakota, talking some ball with some of their coaches and just trying to, anything that, football is football. But if I can learn one thing, or take something away from somebody, I'm always game to do that. And so anytime you get a group of football coaches together, they can talk ball forever. And so, I had a really good day today, talking some ball and learning some new things and, hopefully some things that I can, take back to our program and implement.
Awesome. All right, Coach Butler, hey, thanks so much. And while I was talking with you here, one of our buddies out here in SoCal, head football coach at Linfield Christian, Coach Dejon Burns. Yeah, he passed on his greetings to you today, so he wanted to say hello to you.
Oh, what's up, Coach? Coach Burns, what's up, man?
Yeah, he's man.
My guy.
I think there's a lot of coaches. We all, a lot of guys know each other, but man, I don't think there's anybody I have ever come across who knows more coaches than Coach Burns, man.
Oh man, Coach Burns, he got them all.
Yeah, he's outstanding.
Coach Burns knows them all.
I'll try to sit and talk to him at a clinic out in the hallway, and that just never works. He knows everybody, so.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, Coach. Well, hey, you have a good night. Thanks for your time.
All right, I appreciate it. You too.
That's it. That wraps up episode 10 of the Coach's Locker podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Really hope you enjoyed that interview with Coach Butler. Big shout out to Coach Butler for his time today. I really look forward to checking in with him once a week. I think it's going to be really interesting for us all to kind of follow his journey. Please follow him on Twitter at Coach Butler TIU. That's at Coach Butler TIU, at Coach Butler TIU. Hey, reach out to him. Give him a little shout out. Let him know you enjoyed him on the show here today. With all of our listeners, it kind of helps them to, know their time was valued. If you reach out to them, let them know, send them a message, let them know something you maybe learned a little bit. Hey, remember, check out the Football Coaching Podcast Network. Visit footballcoachingpodcast.com to hear our entire lineup of top football coaches. Got some great coaches. If you're not part of that network, get involved. Check it out. Follow me on Twitter at Coach Fore. That's at COACHFORE. Go to 8laces.org, EIGHTLACS.org/podcast for my email and all the ways to follow me. Online, you can also find show notes and schedules of upcoming topics there. Until next time, this has been the Coach's Locker Podcast with Chris Fore.